Hello and welcome to the Travel Nurse and Allied Life podcast and the TravCon TV YouTube channel. This podcast is brought to you by TravCon, the conference that everyone goes to in the travel healthcare industry. And we are bringing to you guys amazing experts in the industry. My name is Laura Latimer. So I do a part of the podcast that's all about the healthcare trends and the technology and the future of healthcare. Where are we going in the future? And so I bring you guys experts of people who are building some of our future right now to talk to us about their vision for the future and what they're up to in building it. So I am very excited about our guest today. He is up to building something that's really different in our industry and has potential to be one of those early adapters of how we're really going to change in the future. So I'm happy to introduce you all to Alexi Nazem. He is the co-founder and he is the CEO of a company called Nomad. So thank you so much for coming and being a guest on this podcast. And I'm going to start out by really letting you introduce yourself and your company a little bit. And then I've got lots of questions to dig into with you.
Sure. Thanks so much for having me on the podcast. I'm really excited to chat with you. So I guess I can just get started a little bit by telling you about me and the company, and let's see where it goes. So, my background is that I'm a physician actually, and I've been seeing patients for a long time, and actually have done some of the equivalent of travel nursing, but for doctors, locum tenens, and found it to be an extremely frustrating experience. So, so my co-founders and I, we wanted to start a company that actually solves a lot of those problems. So basically, what we have set out to do is to build a modern, very friendly, easy to use experience for healthcare staffing that focuses on bringing essentially consumer grade technology and consumer grade experiences to the clinicians that are the ones who are really creating the value in this market. And one of the things that I found so frustrating, and I'm sure you as a nurse and all of the travelers who are hopefully listening to this podcast have found frustrating, is just how sort of fragmented and old school the traditional recruiting process is. So we built a platform that puts everything online. It's very transparent and really puts the nurse in the driver's seat and allows her or him to search, sort, and filter for jobs all on their own, get all the details that they need, find out what they're qualified for, and really apply with one click, and to create just sort of an outstanding technology-driven experience. And really putting, as I said, putting you back into the driver's seat. And our whole vision is basically saying, let people do that which only people can do, but let's have technology do everything else. And I'm sure anyone who's emailed or mailed or faxed their certs or whatever for an assignment can attest that there's a lot of stuff that just feels tedious and unnecessary, especially in this modern world. And so we've set out to completely change that and make a better experience.
Oh, we're so grateful that you are up to changing that. It's amazing. I'm curious, just side note, what kind of physician were you? What was your specialty?
I'm an internal medicine specialist, and I primarily practice as a hospitalist.
Very cool. I never knew that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so all of that you said.
I'm one of the crew.
You are one of the crew. You're one of the healthcare workers. It's good. We need more healthcare workers coming up with the solutions, right? We have the pain points.
Yeah.
It's so great to see that. So
well, I think you can see that probably, you can tell that most of the industry wasn't designed by people who actually worked in the industry. It's just like, nobody's thinking about what the clinician needs. And so that was, like I said, we want to put the clinician in the driver's seat. They're the ones creating the real value. So we want to make sure that their needs are served.
I love that. That's so great. So you call yourself a technology-driven healthcare staffing company. And so really you guys are focused on how do we make this technology easy for the healthcare worker to use. And also you were like, let the people do what only the people can do, but let technology do everything else that it can do. This is really different. And for the travelers listening and out there, you probably know that because you've probably all or most of you have worked with a traditional staffing agency. It's mostly human solutions for every problem. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of reasons that that's actually not great. It might feel like, well, a human's helping me, but humans can't standardize. Humans can only can't do things
Mhm.
consistently every time, et cetera, et cetera. There's lots of things I'm sure that with that, but in that you are used to a human kind of taking you through every step,
Mhm.
having to be the one to show you the jobs, having to be the one to break down pay packages, having to be the one to answer every question,
Mhm.
et cetera, et cetera. That's traditional. So, the question I want to ask you is to really, with a more of like a big picture view for the travelers, what is it that you think technology can actually maybe even do better than humans, that it should be pulled away, but what's left over? What do you feel like humans just
Mhm.
still rock at, that you still need that human right now, at least in this industry? I'm curious if you can even get specific a little bit and break
Yeah.
down the different things. Mm-hmm.
I think the simplest way to think about it is the closer you are to an assignment, the more likely you could benefit from talking with a person. So if you're on assignment, is you really want to have someone that you can call, email, text, and say, this unusual thing happened, or I need your help, or hey, I just want to vent. That is a part of any staffing business that probably should never be taken over by technology. But the further away from that experience you get, all the way, let's say, to the start of a search, the more that technology can do, and the less that people can do. So when you're actually trying to find your assignment, it's really frustrating to have to call 5 different recruiters and have a 10-minute conversation with each one of them and hope that they have something for you, and maybe that they're willing to tell you about it, right? And so a technology solution can be so much more appealing, because in 10 minutes on a lunch break, you could probably scroll on your phone and see 40 jobs that are matching your exact interests, skill set, your qualifications, etc. And you don't need to do all those an hour or 2 hours worth of phone calls. And so the technology is definitely a lot more suited to that kind of thing. So anything that requires sort of scale, anything that you think can actually be self-service, that should be done with technology. But things that are more bespoke and more human really should involve a person. Like I said, when you're a traveler on assignment, and some crazy thing, you got floated somewhere you didn't think you should be floated. Well, there's no amount of technology that can solve that problem for you. You need to talk to somebody.
Yeah. I'm curious actually. It sounds so good. And I'm wondering, you guys are one of the earlier companies doing something like this that really is technology focused first and starting that way, versus maybe some staffing agencies where people focus and they're trying to add on technology. You guys
Mhm.
really started with the tech focus. I'm curious if you have any thoughts on how the travelers have adapted to that while they work for you, if you have
Mhm.
some pushback, or some areas that you realize this area is a little bit harder for the travelers to get used to the change, but this area the travelers are
Mhm.
actually embracing it really quickly. Have you seen some of that friction or some of that excitement in being one of the first companies to?
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, we're obviously still in a learning experience ourselves. We're always trying to, iterate and improve our product. So actually, I encourage everyone listening to let us know what's working and what's not working, what you want more of, what you want less of. We're very receptive to that kind of thing, and that's actually speaks to the difference between, it answers your question. It's like we're very, what we call user centric. So we thought about what is the problem that the nurse has and how can we solve it better. We want to have the exact same outcome that they get with a traditional agency, but perhaps produce it in a more efficient, more effective, and hopefully more pleasant manner. So there's this sort of like adage in marketing. They say, when you buy a drill, you're not actually trying to buy a drill, you're trying to buy a hole. And when you are, and maybe there's a better way to make that whole. So maybe in travel nursing, well, really what you want is to get to the bedside and take care of patients. You're a clinician who has this great skill set and you love applying it to helping somebody. There's probably a bunch of different ways that we can make that happen, but why does it have to be going through fax machines and recruiters? It doesn't have to. So that's sort of that was the philosophy. Where have we run into some frictions? I think there's 2 areas. One is just like change is hard, right? Like, so if you've been a traveler for 5 years and you're used to having your agent and doing it the old way,
Mm-hmm.
coming to our system is just by definition different. We try to make it as seamless and easy as possible, but of course there's some differences. You're not calling your recruiter to get the examples, the opportunities. You are going onto our site or receiving a text or getting an email, And it's, yeah, you have to do something a little bit differently. But I found that people, are very adaptable to that. Where we have still had some trouble is where our technology first system actually interacts with the not technology system. Like, we don't control the entire staffing world. So, if we are submitting you as a candidate to a hospital that uses, or doesn't use any technology, we have to, take everything off of our platform. And in some cases, it's horrible. We have to just like email them a PDF of your background, which is, and that, so sometimes that creates some friction, some slowness, maybe a less than optimal experience for, for the nurse. And that's because we don't control the entire experience, but it's still our responsibility to make sure it feels good for them. And that's where you see some of the sort of like frustrations come out. I mean, there are plenty of other examples, but I think the biggest thing is just it is a change, and it's not like you can flip a light switch and all of a sudden this whole industry is operating on a technology backbone. When we get there, it's going to be a very, very positive thing for the nurse.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. It's like, you guys, how nice would that light switch be? If anyone can find it, please turn it on so we can all just flip it on. But you're right. So right now, you guys are really owning this experience of the traveler and really helping the traveler adapt to this change of like, oh, we can be more in control. Oh, I can kind of see what the recruiters traditionally see myself and submit myself. Essentially there's other things that happen when you get submitted, but at least show you want to be submitted yourself, that part. But then there's other parts of this whole, if you think of all of the things, travelers, that it takes to get you into an assignment, the staffing agency is a piece of it, but there's all these pieces on the other side that you guys control. There's, Alexi mentioned the VMS systems, MSP systems, direct hospitals, the way they want to interact with the staffing agency, all the way up to that way they decide to do interviews with you or not. And that's something that is not part of what a staffing agency can control. And so when you're probably, and you can tell me where I'm right or wrong, I love it. But in Nomad, you're probably, for the traveler, you want it to seem like so flow, but actually in the back end, you guys are juggling a lot of things the traveler can't see that actually there's no standardization for it.
Yeah.
That one hospital's like, I don't care if you have cool tech, email it to me. And you're like, all right, human, go email it. So there is no lights to be like industry. We are now succinct and standardized, and it flows. There's all kinds of stuff I bet you guys are still doing in the background that's tricky.
Totally. I mean, I think you hit it right on the head. The key word there is standardization, and that's what we're trying to do. I mean, all technology wants to, in any industry, is trying to take things that can be standardize them, and then allow for efficiency and scale, and that provides a better experience, but also lower cost, therefore higher pay for the client. It's just better. Technology is better. And so you need standardization. And that's what we're trying to do on our end, which is like, to the extent possible, we are trying to standardize everything. Standardize how you search for a job, standardize how you upload your information, standardize how that information is vetted, how it is stored, how it is transmitted. And we chip away, but eventually, you do still run up against parts that parts of the process that we don't control, like you said, the VMSs, or it's called vendor management system. But over time, we're starting to build better and better relationships with those folks as well, and hopefully those pieces can get standardized as well. But right now, the truism about healthcare is true. If you've seen one hospital, you've seen one hospital. That's it. There's like no standardization, but we're fighting that fight, and hopefully we'll get the whole industry there. And I think everyone wants to get there. It's just a question of, can you get enough momentum and critical mass? So the more people that come onto our platform, and then this becomes like your profile on Nomad becomes the standard, great. That means that we as a group, all of the travelers, all the nurses, all the allied health professionals that are on the platform, or whoever, can we have the power to drive change across the industry.
Yeah, that will be nice. That tipping point will be really nice. So I want to touch on, because a lot of our audience is the travelers. I want to touch on some of the fears probably I've heard of people who have not used a technology-driven service yet, and just talk about them. So I think one of them is, some people have a perception that it is for travelers who have done it for a while. So they're like, well, if you're new, you probably need more hand-holding and mentorship from a recruiter who will guide you through it. And so this is only for people who are experienced travelers. And I just wonder what your opinion back is for that, from that statement, which that statement's not true or false, right? I'm just curious your opinion on what you think about
Sure.
it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I mean, well, so first of all, perception is reality, right? So if you think that it's not for, first timers, that's a challenge that we have to overcome. We have to figure out how to make it more welcoming. But in fact, it is a very welcoming thing. Many of the people that we put on assignment are first time travelers. And so we're very capable of getting you up and going and educating you on how the ropes work. But we're like I said, we're looking to get that kind of feedback. Of course, we could be better at this part of it. Certainly, someone who's been a traveler before is gonna, they'll get it a little bit faster. But we've tried to make it easy and simple. The same way that you just don't need a user manual for your iPhone. We want to get it to that. It's like it's easy. A kid could do it. We want to get it to that level on our platform.
Yeah, I see. So it's that's straightforward. That makes sense. And I think that fear too, just me speaking from my own opinions about that a little bit for travelers, is you being an empowered traveler coming into any agency, tech focused or not, is so valuable for you as a traveler. Because I think one of the misconceptions too is that recruiters are experts in the industry, and not all recruiters actually are. So you might have a perception that you're like, I'm more guided because I have a recruiter from the get-go. But I think like learning your own stuff, it could be through TravCon. There's certain blogs that are amazing. There's all kinds of YouTube channels. There's all kinds of ways to learn. But you empowering yourself to learn the industry, that's the winner, no matter what agency you're with. Yeah. So I think that fear could be alleviated if you come in with a lot of your own self-knowledge going into any agency at all, not one or the other.
Totally.
Yeah,
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, that was one of our core insights when we were starting this company up, which was that the best expert on you is you. We as an agency or a recruiter, whoever, whatever you want to call this person that's helping you along the way, can't make you do something that you don't want to do. And only you know exactly what you want to do. So empowering you as opposed to permitting you to do something is in fact really the best way to, I think, to approach this industry. And I think, you were saying, well, what are some common concerns or misperceptions maybe about tech-focused companies in this space as well? Well, what if I need someone to help me?
Yeah.
Like what if I need someone to hold my hand?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think that's like, again, it's not that there are no people at Nomad. It's just there's no people who get in your way. And we are there to help you, to support you, to propel you to the thing that you want to do all on your own. And again, that comes back to this thing about being user-centric. What's your problem? You want to buy a hole? We're going to help you get that hole. You want to get on assignment and be at the bedside? We're going to help you get there. But you can always reach out to, support at nomadhealth.com or call our 866 OK Nomad. I mean, there's always people. There's people there to help you.
Oh, there's people there.
But we want to enable you. We want to enable you to do it on your own. We want you to be able to do it on your own. But if you can't, we're here.
And I think that's really, really great. Okay, I'm going to move into a question for you. You being someone who is a thought leader in this industry, you are someone who a lot of times thinks of big trends and you get into the trenches and make stuff happen. But putting on your big trend hat, what do you think the industry is going to look like in 5 years or even 10 years? We've, a lot with technology, change goes fast as it can feel slow in the moment, but suddenly you turn around and you're like, wow, what do you think the industry is going to look like in the future?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that no matter what, and I'm not even wearing my Nomad hat right now, just saying, as an observer of this industry, a participant in this industry, I have to believe, in fact, I can't believe that it's not going to be this way, that technology is going to be the primary, technology-driven, approach to this market is going to be the sort of dominant, the dominant way in which this market works. Like, you can't imagine a future without it. Kind of like if you just look at regular, like the airline industry, for example, you can't imagine buying an airline ticket now going through a travel agent. But that's how it worked until about 15, 20 years ago. Now everyone goes on Expedia or Kayak or whatever. And so to me, I think that it's the people are speaking, the nurses, the doctors, the allied health professionals, everybody is saying, no, I want to be in control. I want to have access. I don't want to be gated anymore.
Yeah.
So I think definitely that's going to happen. I also think as a result of that technology, you're going to see a lot more sort of consolidation, which will end up being a good thing because it'll lead to standardization. Right now, there's over 2,000 staffing agencies in healthcare alone. And that means that it's so fragmented, and you have to talk to dozens and dozens of organizations to find the things that you want. And so I think there's going to be a lot of centralization, standardization over the next several years for sure.
Yeah, so less agencies, probably agencies coming together, agencies getting bought and acquired, mergers, probably a lot happening, less and less agencies.
I think so.
More standardization.
I think so.
I agree. I love the airline analogy and your drill analogy. Two great analogies you're rocking right now of that, because it is hard to imagine, why would I call a human to book a flight? But it wasn't that long ago that you had to. On that note, do you think, probably not in the next few years, but let's say 10 or even 20 years, like there won't be the need for humans, like how the airline actually doesn't have a recruiter. Maybe if you have an actual problem, you can try to call the airline to get a refund or something. Do you think that we'll move that far? Or do you feel like in this industry, we probably always will have humans at some point in the experience?
Like I said, I think that the closer you are to being on assignment, I think that there's a very good case for having people involved. So I think that it's not going to be completely robotic and whatever. I think that there's going to be some people involved, but I think it's going to be a teeny tiny fraction of the people who are involved today. There's so many steps of this process. I mean, think about like credentialing and compliance. Why does a person need to be involved? A middleman need to be involved in that? I mean, it's just gathering, sorting, storing, and transmitting information. That is technology's like raison d'etre. I mean, like that is why technology exists. Yeah. So like you cannot imagine that people need to be doing that, and that's like a huge portion of the workforces of these traditional staffing agencies, and it's through no fault of their own. Actually, it's like they're just dealing with a problem that's been created by this sort of patchwork that the healthcare system in America is. But you get some consolidation, some standardization, then it becomes possible to technologize something, and no one's going to cry about not having to sign sign something with wet ink and fax it in. Like that's not gonna be a people-powered process anymore. So I think it's not going to be zero people, but it's going to be like 95% less people than there is today.
All right. We heard the prediction. We're going to circle back around in 20 years and see if you're correct. I think it's a great prediction. So I just have a few more questions, and I'm really excited about these last two. So one question is, I feel like in our industry, in travel healthcare, some could say we are a few steps behind other industries that might have already developed really robust technology that has their cultures have already adapted, right? Healthcare in general, everyone can relate to this. Travelers, our electronic charting systems, we can all relate to, like all of our tech feels like way behind what maybe we see on our phones and different things. We're like, why is it so clunky? Okay, regardless of that, I'm curious for you as someone who is one of the visionaries behind Nomad, one of the visionaries of where our industry is headed, which is incredible. If you do have a role model company or two in another industry that you think this is incredible what these companies are up to, that you want to talk about.
Yeah, sure. So I think, first of all, I'm flattered that you would say that I'm a visionary. I'm actually learning a ton from all the people who have been in this industry for much, much longer than I have. So I reluctantly take my seat at that table, but I appreciate the compliment nonetheless. But I'll try to do my little part to move things forward in this industry. Look, I think I want to make a comment before I say the company that I'm thinking about. But so you said like charting systems. That's a perfect example of how we like forced technology into the industry, and yet it actually didn't work out so well. And I think the reason for that is that we were building technology to solve somebody else's problem, but not the problem of the person using the technology. So almost every single charting system is built on the basis of a billing system. And it's super important to do billing in American healthcare. But it doesn't actually work for charting. Like you need to be able to communicate a small amount of information. So at report, you can, get that key information across, but instead it's like 50 pages of stuff in Epic. Like that's just nuts, right? Because it wasn't designed with the primary user and use case in mind. So that's why we've had so much trouble actually introducing technology into this space. And you have to look no further than what's been going on with the pandemic response to see that healthcare is not designed to innovate quickly because we're a patchwork, a fragmented organization that has many different interested parties. And it's hard to develop something that works for each use case. All right, so with that in mind, answer your question. Well, where do I look for inspiration? Lots of places look for inspiration. Healthcare does not have a monopoly on being a complex industry that does not work very well. And so, I think, one place that I've drawn a lot of inspiration from is actually the company Airbnb, which I'm sure many of the folks listening have used while they're on assignment. The reason I find it really inspirational is because they have taken what could have been an extremely painful, extremely complicated, very high value, high risk transaction, someone letting their house be used by somebody they don't know and charging thousands of dollars and having it flow through. And they were able to make that experience not only like easy, but pleasant, almost to the point where you are looking for a reason to do that. That's so cool. I mean, it's such an inviting, user-centric, design-oriented company and product. And they essentially created a whole niche that didn't exist before. This idea of, using your home almost like a hotel and vice versa, not going to a hotel, staying in somebody else's home. That is so cool. And so it just shows the power of technology, but also the power of focusing on the problem that you're trying to solve and the use case, and then but doing it in a way that's beautiful, easy, inviting, engaging. That has provided a great deal of inspiration to all of us here at Nomad. I can go on and on and on about them and many other companies, but I think it's a pretty good analogy for what we should be shooting for in healthcare.
Oh, I love that. That was great. Thank you for that story too about the who the tech is designed for makes such a difference, because you nailed it. Every healthcare worker, I'm sure, just like nodded their head in unison of like, it was designed for billing. Yeah, and you're right. If you're obsessed with the user who's using it and design it for them, wow, what a different outcome you can have, even if it's complex. I think that's great. Airbnb is a great one for sure. I love Airbnb. All right, and then very last question is a kindness question, a community and kindness question. It's kindness because we're going to give a shout out to someone else inside of our industry. Because with this industry, as fragmented as we are, we're all in this together, and there's many people building exciting things. So I'm wondering for you, if you want to give a shout out to someone else at a different company in the industry to say thank you for your hard work, for also being a visionary, for also being an innovator to move the industry forward. If there's someone else in the industry you want to say, you've done good, you're doing good things for the travelers to just give a shout out to, this is your chance to do that.
Oh, wow. Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, I think there's a lot of great people doing a lot of really good things in this industry. I think a lot has been changing. I feel like this is sort of playing to the audience and playing to the ref here, but I actually think you've done a really great job. I'd love to give you a shout out. I think why I've been so impressed with what you've done with Nomadicare and just the brand that you have built is that it is really about actually empowering the clinician. I think too often our industry hasn't cared about the primary creator of value, the person that makes this whole thing go around. And there hasn't been a lot in the way of education for the nurse or any traveler, and sort of like eye-opening stuff about what to watch out for, understanding your true value. I think you've done. I know you're just early in your journey, but I think you've done a ton of great stuff. And so I don't want to embarrass you here, but I think you've done a great job. And by the way, I think you chose a good name for your company. I think we share that.
Nomad. I know it's true. Thank you so much for that. Thank you. I love Nomadicare, and I also love being part of the tech centered world too. Everything you say, standardization, all that stuff, it matters to to make a big difference. But I love that we both really care about the travelers too. Like that's where our focus is. That's great. We do need more of that. Well, thank you for that shout out. That was not, I was not scraping for that question, but it is
I know.
Sweet. Thank you.
Listeners, you can be assured that she had no idea I was going to say that. But it's true. And so shout out to Nomadic here.
Thank you. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well,
go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, well, that was my last question, but do you have anything else you want to say to the audience of travelers? But I know other agencies listen to this and other exhibitors, and anything else you want to say, feel free, and then we'll wrap up this episode.
Yeah, actually, to be honest with you, what I'd like to say is just thank you to everybody. I know that we're all working so hard. We're all competing to do well in this whole industry. First, thank you to all of the clinicians who are working every year so hard, but especially in this past year, where the services of traveling clinicians have been so needed. I mean, you've played literally the most critical role in the entire response to this horrible pandemic. So first of all, thank you for putting your lives on the line. Thanks for burning yourselves out. Hopefully you'll take some time to gain and to rest. And so thank you. And also I'd like to say to all of the other companies in this space, I think we're all working towards the same goal. We're trying to do good things for these clinicians, get them to the bedside where patients need them. So we should be linking arms instead of putting up our fists. I'm very excited about working with everybody, and so thank you to you too for all you guys do across the industry. So a note of gratitude, really.
Yeah, I like it. Thank you. Thank you for saying that. And I'll echo that. Thank you to everyone. This industry rocks. So it's an honor, isn't it, to be in an industry during a crisis too. It's incredible to be in the industry.
We've all risen to the challenge. It's been really tremendous to watch.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining this podcast and all of your insight. That was a really fun interview for me to give. And I know our listeners are going to love listening to all of the nuggets you gave us. So thank you. I know we'll see you at TravCon this year, and everyone check out, it's nomad.com, right?
Nomadhealth.com.
Nomadhealth.com. Make sure you guys check it out and all this new tech that's being built. That's so exciting. And we will see all of you guys next time on the podcast and on TravCon TV. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Laura. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Travel Nursing and Allied Life. You can find the full show notes below or at travcon.org. Please help us out by rating our podcast on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. Leave us a comment below or email us at podcast@travcon.org.